but just the amount of people who see necessary to claim that that there was no such thing as a Holocaust, and the Jews are only talking about it because they're in it for the money and things like that. And you just
I've seen loads of comments like this lately, actually. Yeah.
Give me a break, please.
I've seen this quite often.
I see, and the master of the universe decided to go live at that particular moment. Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's episode of Fake Accents Unite. I'm joined by the ever-forgiving Britisher this evening.
Heidi, hi.
And by daughter of Albion, or as you know her, Sarah. Good evening.
Hello, how are you?
Ah, fantastic. I just love that we've got some fantastic sound bites just there, Britisher. Something that could definitely not be used against you in future.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no doubt those people who are not believing in the Holocaust will no doubt have a field day with that.
Well, you know how I clicked go live kind of before you started your spiel, and then it was unstoppable. So
yes, of course.
That's exactly what happened.
At least that's your defense, is it?
Of course, and there's nothing you can do to prove it either way. So what are you going to do?
Oh, please, let's not go into the weight of evidence. Trust me, over the last 24 hours, I've had more than enough of that.
You had more than enough of that. Oh dear, one sec. Where have you gone? There we are. Sorry, just picking up my drink for this evening, which appears to be a Badger's Golden Champion.
Oh.
It just basically tastes like drinking a slightly bitter peach. There we go. Let's see who's arrived in the chat and what's going on. For that. Have I got a straw? No, I don't think so. This has got nothing on EFAP with Mauler. Is EFAP going on right now? Is that what's going on, Harriet? Let me see. There's a lot of things going on. So, how much do you know, guys, about the is it Cheshire Police scandal going on at the moment?
Oh, I'm not sure. No, I don't know anything.
Is this regarding? No, hang on. That was Fire Brigade. Yeah, fill me in. I may know about it, but
basically, in a landmark case, the first case of its kind, they have decided that they discriminated unfairly against a man on the basis that he was white, that he was male, and that he was heterosexual.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny, like the amount of weird comments from people who don't believe him when he says this happened, which is interesting as well. Like for instance, the best one I've heard against him is like, he's a physics graduate. Did he not consider that he was overqualified to not be able to get the job? So basically, he applied for a standard job as a PC, having completed his degree. He got told at his interview that he was the best candidate that the interviewer had ever seen, and that he should be proud. There was nothing better he could have done. And then,
if I'm not mistaken, he's also the son of a policeman.
He is, which is why he decided to take the job. And then he was told, actually, no, we don't want you. And it turns out that the reason that this was because in order to, because there's certain laws which say you can positively discriminate if certain characteristics are lacking within the police force, as long as you have two equally qualified candidates. And the police got around the fact that they weren't getting enough equally qualified candidates by setting up their interview process so that it was a pass-fail on the interview, even though and the score was not taken into account. They were still scored, but their score wasn't taken into account past that. And there was also a fitness examination, I believe, which was in a similar bent. And so what you ended up having was like this kind of really arbitrarily low standard where as long as you'd passed, you were all considered equal. And then if you were considered equal, then they could positively discriminate because they don't discriminate on the score. they
So
discriminate.
effectively, yes, they only effectively apply a pass, and that is effectively deemed the score. So
Yes,
therefore,
so
everybody who has passed is of equal fitness.
Is equal, yes, of equal fitness. And they pointed out something like along the lines of he had like a with honors style, like, you know, perfect interview, etc. And one of the people who was hired over him was someone who had referred to, I think it was chavs or something like that as scabs or something, you know, or drug dealers as scabs or something like that. It was really it was like this. Yeah, that's going to go down well, isn't it? The equality of mediocrity, but lots of Animal Farm-esque comparisons being drawn, of course, where people are just going, oh, some people are equal, but some are more equal than others, you know, that kind of thing. As the Harry channel has just donated $5 to specify to me. Yeah, very Animal Farm, very much. What are your thoughts on the recent AIPAC controversy? AIPAC controversy. Do we know anything about this? AIPAC. Let me have a look. I may have heard of it, but I do not. It is not springing to mind.
Controversial Asia Pacific Summit begins today.
Asia.
Reported by the Himalayan Times, no less. Well, I mean, it's a
what kind
publication I frequent often. Yes.
I'm gonna say, what kind of browser are you using? Like, even I googled this and it came up with some more mainstream stuff than that. I've got GQ, I've got Washington Post, Politico.
Is this the thing with Ilhan Omar saying that there was something about Israel? Isn't it a lobbyist group?
What the controversy over Ilhan Omar's tweet tells us about AIPAC today. So,
I mean, it might not be that, but
it says, from what I can read here, it says newly elected Democratic rep Ilhan Omar from Minnesota faced widespread criticism this week for again tweeting comments about Jews and Israel that are widely seen as trafficking in anti-Semitic tropes.
We're going full circle here, aren't we?
Your topic, Britisher.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think we're beginning to see that there does appear to be a rise in anti-Semitism, and it's not merely happening in the Labour Party.
No,
I agree. Yeah.
Apparently, Representative Ilhan Omar said that the American Israel Public Affairs Committee paid politicians to be pro-Israel. And then basically said it's all about Benjamin's baby when it came to...
You say that for any lobbyist group, though, couldn't you?
For her past statements on Israel. So she's talking about money there, Benjamin's baby. Let me see. We would love to know Ungar Sargon, whoever that is. That's actually their name, Batya Ungar Sargon. An editor at The Forward tweeted, "We'd love to know who Ilhan MN thinks is paying American politicians to be pro-Israel." And she replied, AIPAC, or AIPAC, whatever it is.
AIPAC.
Also, AIPAC, not APAC.
AIPAC, whatever. Like it's like Tupac's retarded cousin, you know, like
Tupac.
Mm-hmm.
Does that American Israel, Public Affairs Committee, isn't it?
Yes, it sounds like that about right. I mean, I'm not that familiar. I haven't been paying that much attention to over the pond.
I mean, they probably do spend big bucks, just like every lobbyist group.
Yeah,
surely.
I mean, money,
it's no different from anyone else.
Money just makes America go round, obviously. But Benjamin. It's just like generalizations in general. Can I say general any more times? You know.
Well, you're the generalissimo of generalizations in general.
Mm-hmm. And yet somehow I was a corporal in your video, Britisher. I just don't understand it.
Yes. I feel a rank of private coming on in the next video.
You think I'll do any voice work for you at private?
I think you've just dropped to recruit.
It wouldn't be any different to normally. So apparently so we have the Labour and the Democratic Party who are now deeply anti-Semitic. That's the general idea.
Well, I mean, that is if all the people who are advising me on Jewish affairs in my channel's comment section are all Labour and Democrats, which I very strongly doubt, to be honest.
Let's have a look. They seem to be, I think, maybe a bit of trolling, possibly. But I mean, I'm no expert. I think they may be winding you up. I might be wrong there.
Well, you know, let's hope so.
Mm.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go on. It's fine.
No, I mean, I just have noticed an upswell, just generally, of comments of this type.
Yeah, I must admit, I have as well. Yeah.
On all your videos, Sarah.
I only have one.
I mean, are you maybe it's just that you're frequenting V's channel quite a lot at the moment. You know how much that they love.
How do you know it wasn't your channel I was talking about?
Because I read my comments.
I see.
You know,
I've noticed loads of sort of Israel related comments, and yeah, I've never really noticed before, like I've never really seen the Jew hatred like that. I've definitely noticed it though.
I really don't understand anti-Semitism in general, but like just as a concept, there are plenty of other things far more worthy of hate than successful people. As far as I go, Sutsgoen, do you have a YouTube channel, Sutsgoen? You're on 1,021 subs live stream when? And it's a pity the 4 weeks already ended. Oh, if you're referring to my avatar, it's because I'm weak. And I ended it a week early. Because I couldn't...
Oh my gosh, you finished it. Have you actually refunded him?
I may refund him. Or I may just...
That's the weakest thing I've ever seen. You couldn't even get a month. 100 quid for that.
I just kept it up. I was it was really funny.
Weakest thing I've ever seen.
I was applying for jobs and they were like asking for my portfolio work, which included linking to my YouTube channel. And I was just like,
no, you're not going to show them your channel, are you?
Ignore the avatar. Ignore the avatar. Whatever you do, ignore the avatar.
You're really going to link your channel to your job applications?
It depends.
But then again, if you would have linked to your channel with your old avatar, you might have benefited from the diversity quota.
I was going to say.
Oh, I should have gone for that.
Coalition.
I don't think Tim Pool would have appreciated that, but you know, let's see.
But I mean, I think you ought to you've broken a gentleman's agreement with your donor. So
I'm gonna have to make amends somehow. I'll find a way. I appreciate Sarah. You've whipped me. I'm loving this. It's like JS says thoughts on Jussie's.
This conversation has suddenly taken a very strange turn.
I'm just gonna go through the super chats until the end. JS says thoughts on Jussie Smollett. We'll come to that later in the stream. Lord Pterodax, £5. AA is starting to rub off on Captain Switzerland. Sounds disgusting to me. He started using the phrase "skin in the game." Capitalism home.
Oh.
Discordia sent £2. It says more Sarah videos when.
No. When I've got more beagle puppy videos. So it's a trade-off.
Sorry, what? When you've got more what?
Discordia's got a little beagle puppy. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name. Boomer. He's called Boomer. So we want to see more videos from her.
Christian Verti sent €2 and says cuck. And which is definitely
it's my favourite comment thus far.
And so far. And people in I see it's the B team tonight and they're shaming me with ones in the chat. How long until we get a top trumps card for Mark Britisher, says Lord Pterodax.
Well, is he worth a card?
Is he even in the game? He's like the Joker. Not even the first reserve Joker. No offense.
So Scowen has chimed in on this whole controversy, saying, "I will forgive you for your betrayal, for worrying about avatars with job prospects in mind. Don't let the woman trample over you. I meant Sarah Subs."
What?
So apparently I'm not supposed to let you trample over me, Sarah. That's the general gist.
I wasn't even trying. I didn't have to even lift a finger for that. Gosh.
Oh dear.
Yes, once in a while, just fall back on the old line. You know, when she gets too uppity, just remember the line "Indi ecce besen besen"?
What?
And no doubt Sarah will immediately appreciate that.
Should we see if Mark can guess?
Say it again.
Indi ecce besen besen.
No, it's completely gone. Completely gone. I've not done German in years. You'll have to forgive me.
It's Latin. No, I'm kidding. It's not.
No, it definitely is not Latin. Thank you. Oh dear. If anyone in the chat can elucidate me so that my suffering is abated, that would be perfect.
No, let him suffer.
Let him suffer. Going back to our anti-Semitic comment story, though, apparently the Democratic leadership wasn't very happy with Ilhan's statement and had to release a statement calling out, saying, anti-Semitism must be called out, confronted and condemned, except to the Labour Party, wherever it is encountered, without exception. We are and will always be strong supporters of Israel, thanks for that check, AIPAC, in Congress, because we understand our support is based on shared values and strategic interests. Legitimate criticism of Israel's policies is protected by the values of free speech and democratic debate, unless we deplatform you, that the United States and Israel share. But Congresswoman Omar's use of anti-Semitic tropes and prejudicial accusations about Israel's supporters is deeply offensive. We condemn these remarks and we call upon her to immediately apologize for these hurtful comments. And she'll only receive an 8% pay rise this year. There we go. Because that's about as much as a statement from the leadership of any political party means. Absolutely.
Could I just out of mere curiosity, Ilhan doesn't sound like a traditionally Christian name.
No, it isn't.
Well, she's married to a brother as well, isn't she?
In fact,
I don't know if that's traditionally Christian or not.
Look,
She married a brother, yeah.
She married her brother. I don't think that.
To get him, I think to get him some sort of visa, and then chat, help me out.
I have absolutely no idea. This is her. There you go. That traditionally Christian face as well.
Yes.
Gosh,
Yeah.
so
No, I mean,
many
I just, it's just kind of worth pointing these things out when it comes to a lot of the anti-Semitism.
Why is it worth pointing these things out, you Islamophobe?
Well, I mean,
nothing to do. She's a disgusting human being, and it's nothing to do with her dress.
I just think that there is a certain parallel there with the Labour Party. I mean, we all, quite a few people will perhaps remember that that photograph of the seesaw with, what was it? Was it 300,000 votes on one side and several million votes on the other?
Yes.
Yes. So, there may be a certain dirty game being played by the Labour Party to a certain degree.
Oh, British. I love it when you talk about dirty games.
Oh, please.
You're worrying me now. You really are.
Object of Hate has given us 2 CHF. Do we know this currency? I don't know where that is.
Swiss franc.
That's
Swiss francs. Okay.
Swiss francs.
That's right, because it's the one which has an...
Or congestive heart failure.
It's got... I've got congestive heart failure. Anti-Semitism and
Confederatio Helvetica, if you need to know.
Is it anti-Semitism and congestive heart failure on Fake Accents Unite? You come here for the best stuff. Not just Labour, La France Insoumise has that problem as well. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest. It just seems to be on the rise, just sort of worldwide at the moment. I don't know what we can do.
Well, I think we all know where it's coming from, don't we? I don't know.
We do.
Well, I mean, how has it got to this point? And also, I mean, I feel like we should be doing something about it, but I don't really know what that is. I mean, this has been a problem for like several years now.
I mean, apart from keeping the Labour Party, for instance, at a fixed membership number and allowing people to continually join and then culling them after a certain point, I don't really understand.
Well, I just looked that up, La France Insoumise, because that was.
You looked up culling the Labour Party.
No, La France Insoumise. That is the party of Jean-Luc Mélenchon. So that's the far left chap in France who sort of, came to prominence in the last general election. But then at the other end of the spectrum, one must also point out that the Front National in France also has a certain problem in that regard.
No, definitely, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Sorry, have I just killed everything again? I have talent in that regard.
There's a slight delay, I think, as well. That's all.
Bear with me, Britisher. I've just received some news that I need to have a look, and I see that you've passed 30,000 subscribers this week.
Ooh,
was this week? I'm not sure. Yeah, it at some point I sort of managed to climb past 30,000. Yes.
Oh, and next weekend will be your 100th video, won't it?
I think it might be my 100th. I'm not quite sure because sometimes I might have screwed up the numbering as I went along.
We should
have
like
it could be the
party
100th the week that was.
The 100th week that was. I mean, that's very impressive.
Oh, we should have like a party cake stream.
In fact, just any kind of stream would be nice, wouldn't it? Press
would be nice too.
Press 1 in the chat if you want Britisher to stream at some point in the near future. That's what I'm after. Lord Pterodax saying, did I read the article he sent my way? I've got a number of articles. Did you tweet it at me? Did you send it to me? Or I think... Oh, yes, it's the ultimate black pill on the EU, apparently. The Brussels Journal, the voice of conservatism in Europe. And it's basically... A former Soviet dissident warns of EU dictatorship. So there's that, which we may come on to later, I suppose, because it's quite a long one, and we'll see. And I do want to get through this Cheshire police thing, right? So
Cheshire Cat.
Okay, Sarah, whatever reference you want to bring in.
Sorry, just mental association.
It's the English literature in you. You're just suddenly like Alice in Wonderland.
It's more and more the child in me. You know when you hear a word and you don't mean to say it out loud, but it's just that mental association.
All that Freudian slippage. I feel like one of my friends says Lord of the Rings Freudian slippage. They constantly mention things from the films.
That's a unique condition.
Yeah, I know. It's like a disability, and we look after them well. A police force which rejected a well-prepared potential recruit because he is a white heterosexual male has been found guilty of discrimination. Matthew Furlong, 25, whose father was is a detective inspector in Cheshire Police, applied in 2017. And when he lost out, his father lodged a complaint because he couldn't understand why. The tribunal ruled that he had been a victim of direct discrimination on the grounds of his sexual orientation, his race, and his sex. All these equality groups, be careful what you wish for, I suppose. The force claimed it had seen 127 candidates who were all equally suitable for the role of police constable. And this was a fallacy, apparently, the tribunal ruled. I don't know. These anti-egalitarian tribunals. And it imposed an artificially low threshold, assigning candidates a mere pass or fail was not a proportionate response to addressing the force's lack of diversity. Cheshire Police was among a number of forces criticised in 2015 for having no black officers, but has since taken steps to improve opportunities for those of different ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, and disability. Now, it's interesting that because I believe it's the only police force in the country at the moment to have 0.6 men for every woman in there already. So there's that side of things. And they're aiming to make it sort of 0.5 from what I understand, so that they can equalize and they'll have an exact 50-50 police force by
who sets... Oh well, hang on, doesn't that imply a gender binary?
I should have brought that up. Like, we should have 1/72.
Who sets these quotas?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think it's
some bureau of.
But I don't think it's even that. I think it's because a lot of our police forces are independently maintained by themselves, or they're supposed to be. So it's
independently maintained by themselves.
All right. So you get the police force looks after the police, and then there's they'll all meet together at the Met or whatever, and then they'll get criticised by each other. You know, they have league tables and stuff like that, just like
What diversity league tables?
Effectively, yeah.
I just prefer to lose.
It's just like, yeah, you're losing on the diversity score. Actually, I think I'm winning.
West Yorkshire Police recently won it, didn't they?
Yeah, because they're like 0.8 men per woman or something like that.
Well, I think they won an award, didn't they?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
They won some kind of Muslim community award.
The Muslim Diversity Awards or something like that. And they got this thing for like emotive policing or something like that, or like considerate policing.
Well, of course they won. I do think they realise, yeah. I was interested to see the comments in response to that.
You had to bring the Muslims into it, didn't you, British Show? You know that's one of her triggers. But here we go. So this is the talking about Islam is one of your triggers, Sarah.
That's true.
Or rape. Oh my goodness.
Or Hungarian borders.
I have this thing, as I was saying off stream, where I have to go to a series of seminars next couple of weeks about how the UK is a rape culture, and that we perpetuate the normalization of rape myths, and that these are common amongst our society. And I'm a bit like, you what, mate?
What's a rape myth like?
So I don't know yet. I'm looking forward. I'm intrigued when tomorrow the slides go up and I get to analyze every single one of her sources. Every single one of her sources in great detail. Because I missed, thanks to, I was meeting up with Discordia and a couple of other people actually the other week, and I missed a lecture which was talking about the gender wage gap, and I'm so gutted that I didn't. I'm like, I feel like I allowed a lie to be perpetuated in my workplace.
Yeah, that's pretty worrying. So, well, it depends what they were saying, but yeah.
Well, you know exactly what they were saying. I think it's exactly what you're thinking they were saying.
I just don't understand how they get away with that. Is as an actual department, that's outrageous.
Yeah, it's pretty horrendous. I mean, it's fear mongering for a start. Like this is doing nothing positive, and obviously it's just factually incorrect as well. Do we have an academic agent in the chat? I'm about 8 minutes behind. Why don't you join us, AA? Just join the chat.
Get on the chat.
Let me see. Get in here at the academic agent. Let me see. Let's do that. Salad Fork has donated $5 and says, how exactly do they plan to use women to contain a riot? Give them all the riot gear in the world. They won't be able to stand up to football lads. I mean, I have to agree. There's nothing controversial.
Maybe the plan is that the football lads are not going to attack because they see women, and therefore it disarms them, so to speak.
They'll just get them to. They'll get the women to smile seductively. The men will break down, and then they can arrest. And then they'll arrest all the men for sexual harassment.
You think the women are going to smile without? What did they say at the Women's March? That smiling was unpaid labor. I mean, emotional labor.
Asking women to smile was like unpaid emotional labor. Yeah, it was horrendous. Binary Surfer has donated £5 and he's needling me for missing his super chat, saying, this Cheshire police scandal, I saw it firsthand in other counties as of circa 1998, was instructed to fail 33 white candidates and progress only minorities. This is
really? How long ago was that? How did they get away with this? This is outrageous.
Do you know how they got away with it? The McPherson report is how they got away with it, which was obviously
that's true.
This whole thing.
I mean, it's just odd, isn't it? It's very like racial identitarian.
Oh well, just predicating everything on race is also like this idea that in order to be competent, you must be representative, and it's like, if you have lived in an area, like I'd much rather they did, I would even be more accepting of like area-based police discrimination, right? So it's like, if you're going to police in this area, you need to have demonstrated that you have this area knowledge and you know where everything is. Because that's one of the big problems, say, with Sussex police, right? Is that there are council estates that the police that get imported from all over the country have absolutely no idea how to navigate, to the point where they were giving my local police force maps of their own town, because so many of them had come from other places and didn't know how to navigate. And obviously criminals who come from the area know exactly what they're doing. And they run around and they run circles around them.
It almost reminds you of Carry On Constable, where at the very beginning of the film, the new police officers arrive and they don't know the area. So they're kind of walking in a group and they actually have to stop someone to ask the way to the police station. It just happens to be the jewellery robbers. Basically, who are just getting the loot in the car.
Oh, I see.
And one of them manages to keep a completely straight face and point them towards, the direction of the police station. And then they waddle off and he gets in the car and drives away with the loot.
I see. That's just
anyway. Yeah,
I haven't seen a Carry On film in, goodness me, it's been many, many years since I've seen a Carry On film.
That's probably, want to say you're British?
That's probably a good thing, to be perfectly honest.
They're filthy as well. I never realised how.
Wow, just pure filth.
They
got considerably baudier as they went on.
So bawdy. Oh my gosh.
When they actually began, they weren't that far off from Ealing comedies. In nature, because I think the first Carry On film was made 1 year after the last Ealing comedy. I'm not sure, something like that. So in that regard, it was kind of an evolution, and they became much baudier towards the end. I think, particularly as they started wrestling for an audience, basically. They then decided
how to win the masses back.
Yeah.
Oof. I don't know, like, as I say, I remember being banned from watching them when I was a child, just because they got so particularly horrendous.
Was that with Barbara Windsor doing her exercises in the camping ground?
I assume so. I don't know. But at the same time, I was allowed to watch...
One of the most famous Carry On scenes.
And yet, at the same time, I was allowed to watch Blazing Saddles. So what does that tell you?
It shows that your parents didn't know about Blazing Saddles.
Bad parenting.
You're calling my parents bad parents, Sarah?
Yes, what? She is.
Yes, it just doesn't know how to respond. Carry On Camping, matron. Let me see. AA is lower than a cow, mostly because he's so short. That's just like random comments that I pick out from chat from time to time. It's just whatever. Carrying on minioning. No, that's not going to be a thing.
It does work. I like it.
No, it doesn't work.
It kind of does.
Carry on up the cyber. Yes.
Oh God. Yeah, I suppose that could work. The so we've got all this stuff about this kind of white discrimination or whatever, and it comes at about the same time that like the left is screaming about how privileged Christians are, right? At the same time, and in the UK government has just had to commission a like an emergency something or other. I can't remember what it's called, summit or something, in order to address the fact that Christians are now considered to be one of the most persecuted groups worldwide.
We've known that for like 6 years.
Yeah. So you claim, but that takes them a while to catch up, don't they?
Well, I thought this was last year in The Guardian, and the lefties were mocking it, so they didn't believe it.
And then you've got
carry on cooking.
now there's this thing where universities are having to make allowances for the fact that white men are a dramatically underrepresented group in certain areas, and particularly just men in general, because they're failing their way out of education.
They're not going to reintroduce you.
Of course not.
Trying to breed you guys out.
But now certain people are using the kind of equality doctrine against the people who would rather not have white people around. So that's
what it is. Yeah.
All entertaining. I just hate the. I was talking to someone the other day who was so proud that they helped get in the 2010 Equality Act, and they consider that to be a highlight of their career. And I'm just like, that's just like one of the worst pieces of legislation that was passed in the last decade. You know, like just horrendous. And I just wish I'd had more time to basically grill them about it. It was horrendous. But yeah, so the police have done this. Of course, interestingly, the candidate, Mr. Furlong, has decided that actually he doesn't want to join the police now. Because he said that as much as he'd been offered a place after this, he was just like, well, why would I do that when it is clear that your entire hierarchy is infested with this stuff and all my promotional prospects are going to be based on the color of my skin and not my work? So thank you very much, but no thank you. And he doesn't really know what he's going to do now. Is it any surprise? He reckons as well that there may be a class action style of thing where a lot more people come forward now against many different police constabularies and basically say the same thing. So who knows what could happen?
I think we've got a major problem now. It looks as if the academic agent has been handing out the pass willy-nilly to various friends. So it appears that we don't have the academic agent here, but Sly Sneak has instead arrived.
Sly Sneak has arrived. Oh, Sly.
It is I.
It's been a long time. You sound dehydrated, man. Sounds like your many rap battles have burnt you out. Are you okay, Sarah? Are you okay?
It sounds so cool. I enjoy it.
So what's up?
Your throat is hoarse from many rap battles lost.
That's what he's speaking through to try and get this full voice.
Behind. So what's the deal?
We're talking about the young man who was basically discriminated against in his application to Cheshire Police. If you've read anything about that.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and this whole... all of the candidates were equally suitable for the role, all 127 of them. Pretty horrendous.
But it was a pass-fail thing, right?
Yeah. They added a pass-fail requirement, and then they were like, oh, you're all equally qualified, seeing as you've all passed, and now we can pick and choose based on what coloration you are and what you like to put your genitals in, you know.
Where do you like to put yours, Mark?
That's none of your business, Sarah. Thank you very much.
True.
I mean, from what I heard, Sarah was absolutely dominating you on the stream, Mark. I mean,
there was this thing, of course, about my avatar change, and she was basically like, "You're weak. You're a weak man."
I paid 100 quid just to do nothing for a month, and he couldn't even last 3 weeks.
Oh dear.
Pathetic. Did you ever see that thing on Seinfeld where they all have a bet on who can like not masturbate the longest? And I think like Elaine lasts like a day or something, and she hands in her money, sadly. But I mean, it kind of reminds me of that. Mark couldn't even keep up his. What was it 4 weeks you went to last?
Yeah, supposed to. It only lasted 3. And the not that I've ever watched Seinfeld. I mean, what do you take me for? Sitcoms? Me? Nah, it's not going to be happening. Binary Surfer says, not so obvious. I bet you won't read this out. Oi, deep lore. How about a picture of a cute bunny rabbit pegging a minion?
I say, I'm not drawing that.
Oh man.
And Macadamia Nut saying, I thought my respect for AA had hit rock bottom after he failed to read out one of my super chats, but now I respect him even less for making an appearance on Fake Accents Unite.
I'll have you know that the academic agent is busy tonight and is not appearing on Fake Accents Unite.
Of course not.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I am not he. It is I. It is I.
When you uploading next, Sneak? We need to know.
I don't know.
You've hit over 1,000 subs now that you're monetized, I presume.
I'm not, but I don't think I am. Let me. I will have a look to see if I'm monetized, and then I'll bring you more exciting content.
for money, capitalism.
I might knock the wrestling thing on the head because I think market demand was very low for that.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Although, did you see Teabag did his version of it, which was a little bit... which was a bit more
Yeah, I did.
entertaining, and the academic agent one.
Well, hold on. It was better if you need graphics, but as you know, I like the imagination to take over. You know, proper games only need gameplay and imagination and storytelling. You don't need fancy graphics.
No. Your games only need walls and walls of text.
Exactly.
Walls and walls of text.
There may be a sequel that sold quite well. Anyway, carry on. I don't want to just destroy the content of this stream.
Of course, what content? Right, we're going to go on to Jussie Smollett now, who's obviously been making his own appearances in the media, and they still appear to be obsessed with him. But in particular, I wanted to bring up a Guardian news article just because it's funny, and I'm going to have the Britisher read the title.
Oh dear God! You want me to do some work?
Of course. I mean, you're not here for free, right?
I'm not.
Well, it's psychic profit. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh dear God! Someone's been listening to someone's.
I would never.
Jussie Smollett's story shows how intolerant of victims we really are.
Oh, I could have predicted that.
I love that they have to put victims in inverted commas because it's just not true.
Yeah.
And it's like the media reaction to the actor's alleged fabrication. Oh, the word alleged has made its way into the dialogue now. The word alleged, given that all of them were like, this attack is real. It's a statement of fact. There is no allege here. He was attacked by MAGA supporters. And it shows how victimhood culture is used as a means to attack minorities. So even though he fabricated his own attack, he's a victim of an attack on minorities.
God.
Via means of victimhood culture. They're winning. They're winning with these people.
Of course not. Like they can't admit they've lost or conceded any ground. That's just not the way they do it. In fact, it's the perfect tactic that someone like, say, the academic agent, should he be here, would use as a perfect rebuttal in the way that we should deal with SJWs.
Well, I mean, they basically play take no prisoners, pure Alinsky all the time. I mean, I don't know if you noticed this week, but David Lammy was called out on his expenses. Did
anyone see it was something like £1.1 million or 1.3 million over.
Did anybody see Lammy's response to that?
He was like, I'm giving lunches to like interns or something, and they were all these 59 pence expenses.
No, Jaffa cakes, aren't they?
He spent a lot on Jaffa cakes, but this is what I mean, right? This is what I mean on Alinsky, right? He was called out for outrageous expenses, like over 100 grand a year on expenses. Okay, imagine that was Mogg or like anyone in the Tory party. Okay, let me just see what he said. He said, "Not expenses. 95% is staff salaries. Blah blah blah. To all my constituents who are smashed by austerity, screwed by universal credit, kicked in the balls by the hostile environment, crippled by knife crime." Blah blah blah, and then he had like 3 or 4 posts where he then went like, "You're race," like he basically called out racist,
full offensive,
sexist, and that is Alinsky. He didn't, like, somebody's criticizing him. He didn't just come back with 1 or 2 counter punches. He was like, right, all out nuclear war, and this is what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
They play Alinsky, and that's why they hate Trump, because Trump does that. Trump doesn't just say.
No, he goes full offensive. Yeah,
right.
It's rules for radicals.
It's rules for radicals, which was written in 1973. The left have been playing by that rule book, I would say, for 20 straight years. And Lammy is pure, like 100, like that's all he does. He's 100%. There is nothing that he ever says that isn't an attack, and that's what the left will do. They will use even something calling them out to go on the offensive again.
Trust you to move this from an American onto David Lammy.
Of course, Lammy was behind. You know, you really want to know what he's spending all that money on. I mean, at least 3.5 grand of that money was to Jussie Smollett, wasn't it? I mean,
Jussie Smollett, yeah, obviously,
he's
to
funding-
help him pay. So, going into
Did
this.
you just post today on hoodies?
What?
Oh yeah, and did you see that, Mark?
No, what's going on?
So David Lammy has been part of this campaign where like 60 black men wore a hoodie, and there's like a video of like, and Lammy's one of them. Lammy's one of the black guys wearing a hoodie. You should try to find that and play it because it's absolutely hilarious. Let me see if I can find that.
It says, "Why can hoodies be dangerous for black men?"
Yeah.
Oh, because he tweeted out, just because I'm a black man and I choose to wear a hoodie, it does not make me a threat.
No. There's a video though, Mark. There's a video that goes with it. You should play it. It's hilarious.
Let's challenge this lazy and yeah. Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can get here. Present to everybody. Hide that. And so it's the Guardian. Why can hoodies be dangerous for black men? Hoodie bias. Hoodie by the vid.
Oh, I'm really loving it.
Oh man.
He looks so uncomfortable in that.
Oh boy.
Oh man.
Yeah. It's almost as if wanting to hide your face. Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
man.
it is.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's the same for white youths. It's nothing to do with black men. It's to do with hoodies. Hoodie bias. It's like, it's comfortable, but don't expect if you're walking down the street at night with your hood up that you're not going to be treated with disdain.
I mean, Sarah, if that rogue gallery of was coming towards you on a dark night, would you cross the street, or would you...
I'd run at it with open arms, I'm telling you. I loved him as the ISIS bride as well in the Shamima.
Did they put...
Someone did, yeah.
Oh god, I can't
Assumptions that
take
can
it.
have extreme consequences.
Let's see what those consequences are. Oh, Trayvon Martin!
Martin! That's American, isn't it?
Oh
god.
God, I remember Obama talking about that.
I mean, here's
It's
another
not even
idea.
in the UK.
Here's another idea.
Number
one. I mean, I don't want to get your channel taken down, Mark, but
I mean, it's too late for that.
right. Number one, stop doing lots of crime. Number two, stop killing each other. Number three, stop wearing hoodies. How about that?
How about that?
Yep.
It's just like the hoodie. It's like he was shot because he was wearing a hoodie. Stop hoodie discrimination now.
Assumption.
It's just like maybe I should
Trying to change that in.
all that will happen is that they will release a MAGA hoodie.
Like
That's
nice,
all that will happen.
Nice little sweater, little.
Yeah, just have a bit of class, you know, if you're going out. Just to make
The comments on it were hilarious.
Do you wear a hoodie, Berkshire?
I am not sure I've ever worn a hoodie in my life.
Do you live in an exclusive? Do you live in an area which is 90% non-hoodie wearers?
Pretty much.
I mean, I've got a hoodie. I've got a Jack Wills hoodie that I quite like wearing.
How the other half live?
And yeah, in fact I've worn it so much that the Jack Wills logo has started to go on it. And I got asked to take my hoodie down when I was wearing it once. I was just kind of walking around, and the security guard said, "Can you take your hoodie down?" And I was like, "Okay, fair enough," because I look like a criminal.
It's because you're.
Whereabouts were you?
Say that again. Sorry.
What?
I was going to say it's because you're half brown and half albino. You know, that's what
I think I was in a Waitrose or something. You know, just and
yeah. Do you know what? I've had exactly the same thing in my local Waitrose. I mean, not that I shop at Waitrose, but just because the security guards just like, No, we want your face on camera. Thanks. Basically. Couple of super chats to go through. Moody Englishman says, if I saw Diane Abbott in a hoodie, I'd call the police.
Oh my.
JS says, Labour just committed to second referendum. Thoughts? Yes, that's been going on recently. I mean, I think they've shot themselves a little bit in the foot with it, just because I still think that the margins haven't really shifted when it comes to Brexit, and so I don't think it really means anything apart from the fact that they've alienated their entire anti-Europe Labour base.
Corbyn doesn't even like it.
No, he doesn't.
That video the other week.
The European Union gets in the way of him running his own country the way he wants to, shall we say?
I mean, my view on this is that it's created quite an awkward situation for the so-called Tiggers. Is that what they're being called now?
The Tiggers? What on earth are the Tiggers?
That group of independent MPs who just broke away last week.
Oh right, yeah.
Well, you see, they made a massive song and dance about anti-Semitism in the party, but then it very quickly became a Remain kind of group, and then Anna Soubry left the Tory party and joined it, as did a couple of other wets like Heidi Allen, who basically, as far as I can tell, never at any time had any ounce of conservatism in her. I mean, she's literally just a Labour person. I don't know why she was in the Tory party in the first place, but you know, it's like she spent her entire time like saying austerity is bad and we need to spend more money on welfare. It's like, why are you in the Tory party? But anyway, but it's created a bit of a tricky scenario because them doing that has basically pushed the Labour Party into this position. But now they can't exactly say, oh, actually Labour are fine. And the reason that we see, like, you know, it's going to be very difficult for them to pivot and say, oh, we're going to support you on this, even though you're a bunch of disgusting anti-Semites. It's like, oh, how do they square that circle? But they're going to have to.
Also, didn't one of them also say something about funny tinged people as well?
With a funny I mean, other people, they're like got halfway through saying it, and they're just like, I think we covered that like last week or something.
Oh, did you? My bad.
Yeah, maybe. In Norwegian, tigger means beggar. That's fantastic.
I don't know what Britisher thinks, but I think the Labour Party have done this purely to curb any more MPs leaving. That's the immediate reason for doing it. But what do you think?
I mean, in all fairness, I think they're couching it in very careful language. But basically, in order to prevent a damaging Tory Brexit. So effectively, if the deal is one they would be able to agree to, then they still wouldn't necessarily call a second referendum. So it seems as if they're not 100% committed to it, if you know what I mean. So they've left themselves some wiggle room.
Right. So they're basically hedging a little bit.
Yes. So they're basically saying if the deal is bad or there is no deal. So basically, they're saying they would have a second referendum over a no deal. But if there is a deal, then as long as they declare the deal sufficiently amenable to them, then they would go along with it without a second referendum.
Yeah, because that's very, very, very easy for the average voter to get their head around, isn't it?
Yes, but as I say, so it kind of shows they've given themselves a position where they effectively oppose no deal. But I think, to be honest, that's been their position all along, hasn't it? So they effectively oppose no deal and are willing to have a second referendum instead of that, but they're prepared to go along with the deal. You know, so
that sounds pretty horrendous to me. The idea. Just the oversimplifications are obviously going to be the way in which they react to the public.
My view on this is now, I actually think it would work if you're a hard Brexiteer. I think the best play on this is to delay the leaving till March. Till just after the European elections in May. The European elections in May will be, in this country, UKIP will run again. Farage will make a massive song and dance. There will be tons of maybe UKIP will get in, or the Brexit Party, but also
who's the absolutely insane German chap who's making a huge song and dance about this at the moment, who also did the I am European thing recently?
No, that's I think he's Belgian.
Belgian.
Hofstad.
Yeah.
I mean, so because I think that when those elections ramp up, you'll truly see the insane face of the European Union elites, and it will have terrible optics for the EU. But also, after that, we are then dealing with a very new style of EU, because I reckon they're saying about 40% of the new MEPs coming in will be essentially like right-wing insurgents.
Okay.
Liga in Italy, Le Pen's lot in France, AFD in Germany. They're all running like massive on these May elections, and they're all being like, look out, our voters are up for this, we're motivated. Nobody pays attention to European elections, so they reckon that, just like UKIP did in this country,
you're
going to see the equivalent of a red wave in Europe. Then the Brexit negotiations start to look very different when each of those guys have votes in the EU Parliament.
Well, you say that, but the EU Parliament really has so little power that perhaps not.
They have to vote on it, though, don't they?
It's not. They have to vote on it, but it's also not binding in the same way that a normal Parliament is. And really, all that happens is the European Commission, which is currently handling it, is just going to keep ramming it at them until they get what they want. Or there's some statute of limitations where they can only try and push it a certain number of times, and then it gets automatically passed.
The important thing about that, though, is optics. One thing Nigel Farage has been very good at maximizing is his opportunities to grandstand in that chamber. He has had a lot of moments from that go viral and things like that. Now imagine that same scenario when you've got like half of the house with him clapping and cheering. That chamber's been very, very smug up until now, and it's about to change.
One thing they can't afford to have is the European Parliament effectively at war with their own leadership.
Exactly.
Because that just wouldn't work out. I understand what you mean. Sort of constitutionally, they still may have the power to do it, even if the Parliament votes the other way, if you know what I mean.
So what happens when every single week you've got not just a speech by Farage, but a Polish guy, a German guy, a French guy, an Italian guy, Guy Verhofstadt's a twat, Donald Tusk is a twat, every single week? I think the chip damage, not just in Britain, but across Europe, and the general mood and the general feeling, will be enough to push Brexit.
And not just that, the morale of the people who be used to having a unanimous, like Farage being the only dissenter in the room, like are going to have to sit there and actually have to deal with people who are not part of their own echo chamber.
Dylan, I think what actually has been sort of said from what I've read is that they are worried that the largest grouping, basically, which is the conservative grouping and the socialist grouping, that they actually may no longer be able to command the majority. That still would not necessarily mean that the insurgents would control the majority instead, but it would mean that those kind of, that kind of famous coalition of kind of Christian Democrats and Social Democrats would no longer be able to dominate the European Parliament chamber.
Yep.
Dylan98 says for €5, thank you very much, sir. Can the UK still make trade deals if they do a Norway-style option? Also, what options do you think would solve the Northern Ireland backstop? To be perfectly honest, regards the backstop first, I just do not see it as an issue. I think it's an artificially created problem, particularly with the fact that if things become very problematic at the border, there's a strong and growing Irexit movement, particularly in the Republic, which the EU absolutely wants to avoid at all costs as well. Because at least
with the Irexit, of course, there is an additional complication.
Yes,
that is that they're in the euro.
Yes, although there is the kind of non-complication that Northern Ireland could kind of expand to them because they're already sort of autonomous, but not quite. Could sort of expand, the sort of reunification style thing.
I'm a little bit so Irexit is one of those things that I think is how can I put this? There are certain stories that only play within the right-wing sphere, and I think Irexit's one of. I don't believe that Irexit is a proper thing. I'm not even sure if that's where Ireland is right now. I don't want to shoot it down or anything, but it just seems to be like one of those things. It's like a
well, Ireland's in a funny place because its economy is only just recovering, right? So I remember when I was over there last year, and I was talking to a couple of people around who were basically going, it's the first time in decades that we've seen new building projects, for instance, right? And a lot of people credit that to the European Union. So it's a weird split of people who are like, but our economy has been pushed down by the British, and the European Union is helping us, and the other side of it who are less partisan, shall we say?
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like, take that Tommy Robinson film I watched earlier on. That's another thing that I don't think will have any play outside of like right wing. Like, and when I said right wing circles, you know what I mean. Like the sphere of like Lawrence Southern, Mike Cernovich, PJW. Like, it's not going to get on anybody's radar outside of that. I don't believe. Both the Tommy Robinson film and Irexit, I think, is also in that kind of bracket as well.
The Irish in chat are saying, yeah, it's not a thing. So fair enough.
Yeah. Sly Sneak with his finger on the pulse of political analysis.
Obviously. Just don't ever. No. Volpez sends €2 and says Belgian federal election on the same day as the EU elections. So thanks for that. Of course, Volpez being Belgian himself, making the point about the kind of more tumultuous Belgian side of things, but also maybe it's about how Belgium aligning its election days with the EU, just preparing itself for when there is only the EU election, and the population will be able to go along with it without much disarray nationally.
Well, I mean, Belgium would be one of those countries that would have a kind of ingrained incentive to see that happen. I mean, ask yourself to what extent Washington, D.C. benefits from being the capital of the United States of America. So what would it mean for Brussels to be the capital of the European Union, if you know what I mean, if it becomes a proper state? So, I mean, imagine just how many brownie points they're already getting from being the administrative center.
Honestly, we should never have created that country.
I mean, when it comes to Strasbourg and Luxembourg, I mean, it's just nothing else but one giant kind of jobs creation scheme.
Great gravy train.
I mean, why would you have a parliament? I mean, I don't know how many Americans out there will know this. Why would you have a parliament that sits alternately? So, one week they're kind of in Brussels, and then another week they're in Strasbourg. Why would you do that?
Do you know how many people the European Commission employ in Brussels? 32,000 just work for the European Commission. 7,500 work in the General Secretariat. 3,500 people work for various different parties in and around there. That's just there. Now imagine the lobby groups, the various the ambassadorial residences, the the various civil servants, all
the diversity officers,
the headquarters of each of these different campaign groups, the UN people. I reckon
such a gravy train.
You're looking at a huge amount of people.
Yes, but then imagine them all having imagine not necessarily all of them, but most of them having to move every so often to the other parliament and then back again. And somebody tell me that makes sense.
Mm. Well, I'm not going to tell you that.
It
Volpes chiming in with another €2 saying Brussels is a drain on Flanders. It takes billions. And Salad Fork with $5 bringing in Canada, saying Justin Trudeau is in pretty hot water right now too. He's embroiled in a corruption scandal that, according to the polls, may have cost him his election.
Yes, I just saw something before we come on. Trudeau, yes,
Trudeau.
there seems to be some strange shenanigans that went on. I think it was some kind of budget that was being put through. And I saw some film of sort of a committee meeting. I couldn't watch, much of it because obviously this was coming on.
It's being called the SNC Lavalin affair. Which has been going on for weeks, apparently. And it's all because an MP was removed after she refused to intervene in a case involving Montreal engineering company SNC Lavalin. Apparently, the report states that the company officials campaigned for months to avoid trial and instead pay a fine and admit wrongdoing outside courts for alleged acts of bribery in Libya. Suspiciously, the government introduced and passed legislation that would just allow that type of agreement. And since the release of the report, which suggested that the Prime Minister's office put deliberate undue pressure on the MP Wilson Raybould, she and Trudeau aide Gerald Butts have resigned. So it's a big thing about them basically being corrupt. Yep.
Well, yes, but it's an interesting one that you should, in a sort of a budget, you should try and kind of put through some legislation that would allow large conglomerates effectively to pay a fine and get away without any further sort of legal redress, so that nobody actually has to do any prison time or anything like that despite breaking the law.
Yeah, it's quite expensive.
So it's kind of an interesting one that, sort of in sort of the billionaires club of the boardrooms, if those people get kind of caught doing something illegal, they would be able to kind of just, come to some arrangement with the authorities and pay a fine. Whereas if you are David Lammy in a hoodie and a packet of biscuits,
It just makes me laugh again.
You're caught stealing a packet of biscuits. Well, then you're in trouble, and there's no chance of making a deal, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just, I mean, wasn't it Romania, I think, who recently also had some kind of move in trying to make, was it corruption up to €50,000 okay?
I'd say
in that league,
it tells
you of dirty corruption, if you know what I mean.
It tells you what kind of mood and how tired I am when I thought you were talking about somewhere called Romania, and they're trying to make corruption legal.
Why are you so tired, by the way? What do you do that's so tiring you?
No, I do plenty.
Student.
I was hitting the gym. It was all good.
I think it's the slight case of concussion he's trying to get over after being thrown out of a ring.
Oh yes, I didn't do well in that particular graphical representation. I think I was out. I was out even before Grok at that point. Although I didn't.
No. The second person to leave the ring was, in fact, the Britisher, who was attacked in a cowardly manner by rubber. I would like to point out.
Of course.
So while I was trying to take just vengeance on Ray, I was suddenly accosted from behind by rubber.
Good grief. Just somebody clip that British are being accosted from behind by rubber. It may come in useful at some point.
Did Mr. Agent end up winning?
Yeah, of course he did. Of course he did. Well, it was touch and go. I think it was you versus Bantu at the end.
Bantu Rhino, yes.
Yes. But you basically dropped him and then threw him out the ring.
Did he eliminate himself?
No,
out of sheer respect for who he was in the ring with.
let's
No,
just
it was
say
the academic
no.
agent who seemed to stage a miraculous recovery.
He did. You looked like you were done, and I was
For
really
some
looking
reason,
forward
the
to it.
academic agent seemed to be sporting a Sly Sneak logo on his.
Oh, on his back.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sponsored
Yeah,
by Sly Sneak.
I noticed that.
Um,
I was considering as my next Sly Sneak project. I was considering getting a game called Fire Pro Wrestling, and adapting Tiba and kind of making a little story with graphics this time. However, the promoter mode is not released until 2 days' time, so I might wait until 2 days' time before buying that.
it probably got an
Um,
offer as well. So
Yeah. So and then I'll have to spend like ages making you and
just you, the contempt in
likes of Sarah within the kind of the editor in the game, and then we'll see what we can do.
Right, this artistry aside, Dylan98, €5, thank you very much, says the problem with iRexit is that if you support it, you get people saying you want to rejoin the UK. The iRexit party has only 1,200 members. Yeah, that's generally seems to be the consensus. Oliver Smith, £5, thank you very much, says opinions on Hitchens' view of referenda, abdication of responsibility. Best cast, by the way, no American / B and C tier losers apart from Mark. There you go. Thanks for your £5, Oliver. It will be much appreciated and going directly into my pocket. So generally, referenda, I tend to share this idea. Just like if you're,
it's
otherwise you end up cucking yourself to the interests that you can't serve from your own perspective.
it's dangerous because it's very Rousseauian. You know, the idea that the
will of the people is absolute.
will of the people is. I mean, I know on this issue, like people are going for it because of Brexit and they like the result and so on. But I tend to agree that's it's a dangerous precedent to set, and referenda should be used very carefully. And Brexit was generally done badly, I think, because there was enough vagary around it that they're managing to weasel out of it now.
Because they assumed that it was going to be an absolute slam dunk and that it was like the easiest election winner ever to just run this referendum, and then they were fucked. So
yes,
I mean that was stupid by Cameron, given that for literally 30 years the entire press had never a good word to say about the EU. Basically, I'd never heard anybody say anything good about the EU until the referendum. I mean, why was anybody surprised? I mean, it's so obvious in retrospect that was going to happen.
Well, I think one of the things that they kind of have introduced now is that with this having gone to a referendum, it would effectively mean that any major decision, any kind of sort of earth-shattering decision, there will always be a demand, why don't we have a referendum? Which sort of undercuts Parliament. Referenda can be dealt with in a perfectly sort of grown-up manner. I mean, Switzerland do them all the time, but they have a political culture that allows for that. Whereas over here, we're constantly being told about the sovereignty of Parliament, but then at the next moment, let's have a referendum, which, how should we say, the political culture here is not really there to be able to deal with something like this, and therefore it has divided the nation much more so than you could really imagine Switzerland falling apart because they can't agree on some vote.
It's two different sources of sovereignty that really contradict each other. So that's going to be like a permanent problem until, and really what Parliament needed to do was to embrace it, not basically try to undermine it as they've done. There's a problem now, and I mean usually what happens is that if the people think that if the people, quote unquote, want to overthrow a set of elites, usually what happens is that a strong man has to rise up to take them on, to embody the people. That's what's happened basically all through history. And You can see it happening in other countries, right?
Yes,
So,
but is Farage that man now that he's got this whole "I'm going to do the Brexit Party" thing?
I don't think Farage is that man. I think
No.
Farage is not enough of a kind of tub thumper to be that person. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Maybe that person has not risen yet.
Well, I'm not sure that Farage really sees himself in that vein. I think Farage sees himself as somebody who basically can concentrate enough weight with which to lean on the two major parties to sway them, which is, of course, what led to the referendum in the first place.
It's true, but with the two parties currently falling apart at the seams, it's
well, that makes the rise of another party that might be able to do that all the more dangerous to them because they are weakening.
Farage has always seen himself as a kind of gatekeeper of what is acceptable on the right fringe or what is called the far right of the political spectrum. If you remember, he made his name by essentially purging UKIP of all of its undesirable elements and making it kind of presentable. You know, it didn't stop the Guardian calling him racist and all the rest of it, but effectively he was acceptable to Middle England, to the Daily Mail readers, and that's the Overton window. So and that's what the AfD did in Germany too, and it's what Le Pen did in France too. Is kind of, look, we're not Nazis, we're not that for immigration, and we're going to push the acceptable boundaries of what people can say. And I still think Farage sees himself in that way. I mean, I don't know if Farage has ever talked about Tommy Robinson. I imagine that
he hates him.
I imagine that Farage always mouths the same kind of vile, racist, and all the rest of it, and that's because the Tommy Robinson image is exactly what Farage was trying to get UKIP away from. Now, I was interested by something a couple of weeks ago, and this could have just been rhetoric, but the way Mogg sees it, Mogg does not see the political gravity going to Farage. He sees it going to the Basson UKIP, the what he calls the Tommy Robinsons of this world. And I wonder if the energy and the anger is big enough there. I don't know. I kind of think the establishment uses it as a bit of a bogeyman.
I feel like maybe if it had happened around all the time when Tommy was being arrested and put in prison, and the whole thing around his release and how emaciated he was, but I think that there's the trouble is with that kind of lot is they're very fiery, but I think they cool quite quickly as well. So I don't know, unless there's another inflammatory event, whether or not it'll keep the reaction going, because at the moment it's all gone quiet.
I just feel like if there's going to be a strong man, it has to be somebody who, a bit like Trump in America, basically doesn't shut those guys out. Like Trump had this weird way of basically just saying, look, I'm not going to say it, but I'm kind of with you guys.
He was
like
quite inclusive.
Yeah, like he wouldn't say, like everybody was going like, do you condemn the KKK? Oh, yeah. And he was like, he had a way of not casting out people who the establishment right had done that to for years and years and years.
Yeah.
The Tea Party, I'm trying to think of some other, like the guys on like the Pat Buchanan side of the Republican Party. Trump basically said, look, I'm with you. Look, nod and a wink. I'm your man as well as these guys, man. Farage never played that game. Farage has always played the game of, I am not him. And whoever the strong man is has to not play that game. I don't know who it's going to be, but
although Farage is quite close with Trump, wasn't he?
Yeah, yes, but Farage's role in America is Mr. Brexit. So Farage is useful for Trump as the face of Brexit, right?
Mr. Brexit.
But it is. That's his brand out there. I mean, if you ever see him on Fox, it's Nigel Farage, Brexit leader. That's how they bill him. Whereas in this country, obviously, things are a little bit different. He's not Trump in this country, is he?
No.
So I don't know who it's going to be. It can't be Tommy Robinson himself, because I just think that he's too toxic as a brand. I also just think, and I hate to say it, his accent and his kind of Cockney geezer thing,
mannerisms,
it's very difficult, I think, to win over Middle England.
Do you know who it's going to be? Do you know? I think I've worked it out.
Who?
It's going to be Carl of Swindon.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't see, like, possibly. I mean, I don't know. Then again, this is something that has not happened in history.
So you mean to say my dream team of Jacob Rees-Mogg as Prime Minister with Tommy Robinson as Chancellor of the Exchequer are not going to happen?
But British, correct me if I'm wrong, this strongman thing has not been able to happen in Britain ever, is it?
Not really. No.
Not really since Oliver Cromwell.
Yes, it's well put. Yes, it's the parliamentary system pretty much is set up to kind of rule it out almost by default.
Teabag says, "Can't we just get Black Lesbian to save our country?"
Yeah, that'd be an idea. Hey, you know Rose of Dawn?
Yeah.
Do you think I could make her my Black Lesbian? Like, just like have her give all.
I mean, she's already proven she's willing to undergo surgery to alter her appearance. So
I mean, you know, I could just be like Rose of Dawn could mouth all of the talking points and would be immune from like everyone.
Yeah. Dylan 98. Dylan 98.
Run it faster.
Before I forget, Dylan 98 has given another €5. Thank you very much. And says, while we don't want to leave the EU, I presume you're talking about Ireland, most are not in favour of an ever closer union, and most are opposed to an EU military and a common tax system. Well, that's the thing. It's like the EU could be a perfectly harmless entity that just promotes kind of international trade, but it doesn't do that, does it? It doesn't do it. And Liberal Zardos says, for £2, chaos will reign and I shall be its emperor. So that's always good to know. So there you go.
Look forward to that.
Britisher, could you just read that super chat for me?
Sorry, what am I looking at? Where?
I just want you to say, chaos will reign and I shall be its emperor.
Chaos will reign and I shall be its emperor.
Thank you very much.
It's almost like a kind of Christopher Lee, you know.
Or I can't remember his name now. Ben something.
Well, I just did Vincent Price recently, so why shouldn't I do Christopher Lee?
Yeah, excellent. If ever I need to make a film trailer,
Christopher Lee spoke with much more of a bass, didn't he?
Yeah.
Just jumping back to the story we departed from to go through the academic age. I mean, Sly Sneak's Brexit mania.
It is I.
That was very effeminate. Go back to just.
Is that the way you introduce yourself to Paolo Maldini?
It is I. Jussie Smollett and this Guardian article talking about the victimhood complex that is harming him. So one of the many moral panics of our time is that of victimhood culture. Apparently, we are too indulgent of those who can claim victim status, a state especially rife among students. The story goes that this has turned us all into eternal babies, coddling us, protecting us from microaggressions, and signalling an erosion of individual grit and autonomy in favour of mimsy whining. In an effort to invert unfair power structures, some claim, victimhood culture has only succeeded in replacing them with different unfair power structures. Funny that. Where those who used to be at the bottom now hold the whip hand, calling in their inner Powell there. Where those
Enoch, yes.
Yes. Over those who used to be at the top. Women terrify men who are forever fearful an offhand remark will become a harassment lawsuit. As someone who had that basically happen, just out the blue, yes, it does happen. And racial minorities secure jobs at the expense of white people the moment their unusual names are spotted on a CV. The writer Lionel Shriver called it privileging the disadvantaged.
I just want to remind people of the glory days of Twitter, when back when I had the Sly Sneak account, as some people will remember.
Oh yes, goodness me. It's
There
going
was
back.
a whole period during the Sly Sneak era, where I would every third tweet would just be the whip hand and then a link to a story. Do you remember that? That was
Yes, you
I miss those days.
whip hand. And then we had how many accounts was it? You had Sly Sneak, then you had Slyest Sneak.
Slyer Sneak, and
Not Slayer.
AA is now on his second account as well. So
Oh goodness me.
he's on the not Car King account. So.
Yes, I notice everyone has followed my naming convention in generating their hidden accounts. Not V, not Sargon, not Car King, not AA. It's just all aping, not obvious. Just obviously. Apparently, Shriver also told BBC Radio 4 that white men in the UK are on the bottom rung of society because they are considered to be the most powerful demographic. But here they've put brackets, reader, I can reveal they are. Victimhood culture advocates engage in a lot of doublethink. Yeah, but I don't think they're I think they're trying to claim that we're the victimhood culture as opposed to them, which is a bit weird.
It's this kind of reverse snowflake thing. Yes.
I've tried to find this victimhood culture in my real life. Do you know what? I'll share my screen just so it doesn't seem like I'm coming out of nowhere. And its dividends are elusive. In my experience, the most extreme manifestation is people being mildly annoying on social media by constantly prefacing their thoughts by alluding to their race, gender, or sexual orientation, or assuming people are being rude to them because of their identity. But despite the rarity of victim culture in the wild, when it emerged that American actor Jussie Smollett may have fabricated a racist and homophobic attack on himself.
I just have to correct you there because I think his name is Jussie, not Juicy.
Well, I want to call him Juicy because he's clearly after all that juice.
This has been an under discussed aspect of the story. What the fuck is that name? Who is called Jussie?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, they're Americans. What do you expect?
These are the same sort of people who name their children.
That's what we expect.
No, don't take this the wrong way, but I remember reading back in the day Freakonomics, and there was a study on names. If people can remember this, and in the Freakonomics study, they said, well, one of the reasons why black people in America kind of get a raw deal and things is because their names are spelling errors. They're just unique names that are just basically made up. And then when they wrote it on the birth certificate, they made a spelling error on the birth certificate. So you get these names that are spelling errors. And I was wondering, is Jussie Smollett a spelling error? Is it spelling? Is
Justin?
Someone smudged Jesse, and now it's just Jussie.
Yeah, and I'm not making that up. That's a known empirical. I'm not being racist or anything. That's a known empirical thing where loads of people's names are basically spelling errors, which is why they've got Shaniqua and all of this sort of thing.
I've just looked it up. Apparently, Jussie is short for Justin in this case.
Rubbish.
Yeah, if your name's Justin, don't do that.
Yeah, just saying. I'm gonna skip some of the text here because it's just them being angry. But they do make an interesting point here where they say, while the Smollett story developed, two other stories broke. The Southern Poverty Law Center reported that there were now more than 1,000 hate groups operational in the US. Now, that's an interesting story in and of itself, just because the Southern Poverty Law Center, responsible for defining what a hate group is, massively expanded its criteria for what a hate group was. Yeah. And then said, now we have this huge rise in hate groups across the US, when no such rise had happened. They just redefined what hate was.
I just want to point out that some of my best friends are black.
Of course you do. I mean, you're black, aren't you? It's David Lammy, your friend.
And I respect people of all races, colours, and creeds.
What's someone saying in the chat?
Hey, you are technically
practicing for your Oscar acceptance speech.
Is the wife in the room? Is the wife in the room? Is that what's happening?
I respect diversity, and I think it's wonderful that Spike Lee finally won an Oscar.
So angry.
something's happened. AA is being swatted right now. That's what's happening.
On the Southern Poverty Law Centre, and I genuinely want to do this, I think that the most effective change that we will ever enact is by setting up pressure groups, institutionalized pressure groups that do nothing but try to do one thing. And I think that the one thing that we should try to do, and you'd have to set up a separate one in America and a separate one in this country, is basically a watchdog organization to make sure that anything that is government funded is ideologically neutral. That is, you'd have like, why are Hope Not Hate helping with the school curriculum? They shouldn't be, and that should be highlighted. Or why is Hope Not Hate working with the BBC on, you know, as a consultant on their flagship show? Why is the SPLC the official legal advice for what counts as a hate crime? Those things should be.
Is that the legal advice, really?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty sure the
Jeez.
SPLC massively over-index.
The question I would ask about this project would be, where would this itself get its funding from?
Well, this is what this is what I want to have a look into. What would it take to set up a charity organization that was effectively effectively a think tank? Could we crowdfund it? You know, what would the registration fee be? You know, all we'd have to do is make a logo, have a social media presence, and use our channels to push it. That's it basically. And then
I like it.
And then write to various different MPs, pressure campaigns. You know, why are you working with Hope Not Hate on this project? Why, like, can we get, you know, and that's the only way to do it. You have to be a single issue. And I'm thinking, like, what should the issue be? And I think the issue should be, how do we stop these far left organizations, which are clearly far left, who fund Antifa and things like that? How do we stop them worming in to our institutions and putting pressure on, you know, like, you'll probably find the Tories work with Hope Not Hate. We have to be able to, like, sever that, stop it happening.
Yeah, who's funding Hate Not Hope?
So, well, people are saying you have to have the numbers. These are very small organizations. Sometimes the number of activists are like less than like, you'd be surprised how tiny they are. You know, like Tommy Robinson's got thousands of more supporters than Hope Not Hate does, and yet Hope Not Hate massively over-index in our institutions and our cultural and social life, massively over-index. And surely there's nothing stopping somebody else putting a counter group to that, and that's all we are. And in fact, maybe once in a while you have to like be like, hold on, what's this right-wing group over here? We don't want them involved either. You know, even if it's the IEA or something, just to be balanced, we don't want our institutions to be ideologically biased. You have to keep them out of anything that the government pour money into. That and I think that would have, I think basically anybody who cares about what money is spent on should care about that issue. Either that or the hate speech law that we talked about before. But I think there's possibly more legs in that one. So that's my idea. I don't know what people think.
I like it, yeah.
Object of Hate has given another 2 Swiss francs and says, thoughts on EU army and neutrality.at.se.fi.ie. Has there been a change? .at.se.fi.ie. These are all
dot what? Yes, I have no idea what that means.
.at.se.fi.ie. They're all suffixes to websites from EU member states. That's the main thing. But I do not know what the relevance is to neutrality, apart from the general gist of net neutrality being that we need to be more neutral, or as neutral as possible. As for the EU army, I think I see it as an inevitability at this point. I'm a big fan of, say, Hitchin's perspective that the European Union, as a continuation of Germany, is just going to find its way to being a superpower to compete with the US and China and India, etc.
Yes,
and
but
it's
what I
merely
would like to know is what on earth are the French thinking? I think I know what's going through their minds, but I cannot understand how they can make quite such a bad strategic error.
they capitulated back in the 40s, so that's just it. They're done now. They're in the pocket.
They're thinking wider. They're thinking wider. They're thinking, look, if we don't move soon, we're going to be pushed around by China. We're going to be pushed around by America. We need to stand together so that we have a voice on the world stage. That's how, I guarantee you, that's how they're thinking about it.
Well, I'm not sure. I think they're basically just following a doctrine, an old doctrine that has been the main doctrine behind French foreign policy, particularly sort of in Europe, for decades now. And that is basically hug the Germans very closely, because they fought 3 disastrous wars with the Germans. So basically, hug them as close to us as we possibly can, and like that can no longer happen. But if you think of it, I mean, once Britain leaves, they are the sole permanent member of the UN Security Council. They are the sole nuclear power in the European Union. They are the sole power that has the capability of projecting power to most places in the world. So clearly they are the dominant military force. If they now begin to merge with the other European powers, particularly Germany, then give it 20-25 years' time, and just through the sheer numbers game, the Germans will come out on top. Now, that should be obvious to anybody who looks at it. So why would one forfeit one's position, which is unassailable within the European Union, by doing that?
Sorry. So Objective Hate has clarified his super chat a little bit for us. So he's talking specifically about Ireland, about Finland, about Sweden, and about Austria. And he's saying these are all neutral countries in the European Union. With an EU army, that position changes, because suddenly they're contributing to that.
They're obliged to take sides if they're part of the army.
Yes.
Unless they opt out. Unless they're allowed to opt out.
Well, yeah, I doubt they would be permitted to under the Hofstadt's rule.
Well, yes. I mean, Finland. That is a famous diplomatic expression to Finlandize, which is to basically sort of try to be neutral and kind of couch yourself between both countries. I think Finland at one point of the Cold War even bought Soviet jets, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So yeah, they were really sort of a country that kind of placed itself between the two powers, if you know what I mean, not wanting to commit either way, because of course the famous war with the Soviets had cost them greatly, and they were determined to kind of stay out of it if they could. So yeah, one would think that they would be fairly wary. I mean, particularly given that let's say that they're in a somewhat forward position when it comes to armed conflict with the Russians.
Guys, I'm gonna have to duck out. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to sneak out if that's all right with you.
Only if you do it slyly.
Well, how about giving you a couple of bars, Mark? What do you reckon?
A couple of bars.
Here comes Minnie and Mark and a pity shark.
I'm just gonna eject this man. Bye. And there he goes. Away he goes.
Nice, I think.
He was ejected by force. So there was no.
Yeah, I think he was expecting Sarah to be doing the boombox sound while he did the rap.
Are you good at?
I thought you were on that British. Sorry.
Are you good at boomboxing, Sarah?
No. I've never tried, but I know I'm not already.
You're not going to give us an attempt on stream?
No,
That's just not happening.
not happening.
But yes, there we go.
Well, at least by now you're wise enough not even to ask me.
No, well, Britisher. You've already given us plenty to work with in this
Well, there is
episode.
that. Yes, there is that.
I'm going to finish off the last super chat. So Volpez has donated €5 and says, AA, who's gone now? I am sad that the Green Revolution infected the UK from Belgium. Disgusting leftists after our wallets. So thank you for that
Green
one.
Revolution.
I presume something
Much
about
truth.
environmentalism. But
With that Belgian?
I have no idea. Well, I just presume from Brussels, I'm going to bring fake accents to an end at this point. We're a little over where we usually finish. As much as I would love to stay, unfortunately, I've got things to do and people to see, places to be. And Sarah wants to watch Alan Partridge before bed because that's just
I believe he's gone. But from what I hear, he's gone a little woke. So it might not be worth. It might not be worth a watch, to be honest.
I've got to watch it. I just love it. I'm gonna have to watch it.
So we shall see.
It could be woke in a kind of
Well, the messaging is a bit woke by the sound of it.
Well,
and so you know how
produced by the
out of
BBC.
tune he is by not being properly woke, but only trying to be.
I love it.
Yeah.
That sounds funny. That sounds very David.
We'll see how that goes. The Squire of Gothos says, say something very British before you go. I would say, would you care for a cream tea and a basket of scones, Britisher?
TTFN.
Part of the cream tea is the scone, boy.
Boy? Sup,
Part of the
fam?
cream tea is the scone.
Sup, fam? Now get out.